even though TikTok is still one of the most used apps for a lot of people, there is still a lot of misinformation on there. I talked about this in my previous video where I did a reacting to TikToks from Tarot TikTok video, and I thought I'd do it again. So for today, I want to look up tarot tips. So let's take a look at what TikTok has to share for us.
If you're interested in whether or not you might find love soon, shuffle your deck very well and then flip the cards over one by one. If you find the Two of
So we
Cups,
had a tip similar to this in the other video where you go like flip through the deck looking for a certain card, and in that one I think it was one before and one after, where you can get a reading like that. But here it is: if you find the Two of Cups first, you may very well soon find love.
first, you may very well find love soon. If you find the Nine of Pentacles first, you may be single a little bit longer, but don't worry, it's because you're going to be building something really great for yourself.
That's an interesting interpretation, actually. I don't really know how, I don't think that would work for me, but I do like these ideas of flipping through your deck, looking for a certain card to get an idea of like the energy of that card, if that makes sense.
Quick tarot tip to make you an excellent tarot reader. And this tip is coming off of this spread right here.
I think I already saw this.
Here's a tarot tip for you. Think of the Sun card as a source of energy. Shuffle your deck and lay out your cards. Find the Sun card, the card in front.
So that is what I meant with, I like how she did it here where she like spread them out like that. So you can really see the one in front and the one that's after it.
Is what's taking up too much of your energy, and the card behind it is what's not getting enough of your energy. Here's a tarot.
I like that. I like those. I don't think that is how I would read tarot, like I said, but I like the idea of it.
Do you ever get stumped when you're reading
I think
tarot?
we already saw that.
5 mistakes beginners make when they start learning how to read tarot. Number 1 is picking a deck based on its aesthetic. And trust me, I know because I did this myself when
I don't think it's a bad idea or bad to pick a deck based on its aesthetic, because I think a large part of reading the tarot is reading the images. And if you love how the images look, then it usually is easier to pick things out of the card instead of if it's something that you don't really vibe with. Like I know a lot of people don't really vibe with the original RWS tarot deck, so they aren't really able to read with it very well because they're just not attracted to the images. They don't find it aesthetically pleasing for them, so it's harder to read with those cards. But let's see what she has to say.
I was first learning. This card is from the first tarot deck that I got. It's beautiful, but any deck that's inspired by the Rider-Waite-Smith, it's going to be so much easier to help you interpret.
I actually find it very funny that she shows the Tattoo Tarot because it's one of the decks that has pips that has really great imagery within the pips. Like even here you can see that in the Six of Coins that there's an exchange happening here between two people. So I think that it shows it actually really well. So I think it's funny that she shows the Tattoo Tarot because I actually do think that you can very easily get an idea of the tarot card meaning even from the pips just because of how they did them. And then also I do think that they're aesthetically pleasing. But then again, the other deck that she's showing here is the Modern Witch Tarot, which is like an RWS copy. And that's also a really pretty looking like aesthetic tarot deck, I think, if it is your aesthetic, you know. So I think it just depends on how you read tarot, how you read symbolism, what your aesthetic is, all of that.
Because of the symbolism and imagery. Mistake number 2 is relying only on keywords to help you interpret a card. Guidebooks and online resources can be really helpful, but also very limiting. So
the funny thing is that she says to not rely on keywords, but then shows the Modern Witch Guidebook, which doesn't have keywords. That one only has written down interpretations. And I actually found that reading with keywords is great for starting out because you get a more broader, a more better specific. Is it broader or specific? I think it's kind of both. idea of what the card means instead of having like a little written interpretation like in the Modern Witch Tarot guidebook, where you have to sort of like read between the lines to see what of that interpretation fits your specific situation and question that you're trying to do a reading on. So actually, when it comes to like interpretations and keywords, I prioritize keywords in a guidebook, and then if they have like a very insightful interpretation, that is a nice bonus. But for me, it really is all about the keywords, at least when you're starting out and when you're trying to learn the tarot cards. And I do see what she's trying to say here. So try to use your own intuition first and double check with these later. I do think that is a really good tip of pulling the cards first, seeing what do you think that it means, and then maybe looking at the keywords, maybe looking at interpretation, looking at the guidebook. I think that is a good tip. Yeah.
Try to use your own intuition first and double check with these later. Mistake number 3, feeling like you have to read reversals. You absolutely don't. Just do what works best for you. Mistake number 4.
I agree. I don't always read with reversals. I really have to be like in the mood and wanting to do a reading where reversals make sense, because it's just, okay, first of all, when I do a reading with reversals, I shuffle them in, and then after I've done that reading, I take my deck and put it all upright again, because I feel like the reverse cards don't maybe have to be reversed for the next reading that I'm gonna do. I don't know if that's stupid, but that is just how I feel like it working with reversals works for me. And definitely, if you're new to the tarot, you don't have to read with reversals. I do in my tarot course, The Confident Tarot Reader, teach like a workshop type thing of how to read with reversals if it is something that you want to do. But like she says, don't feel like you have to.
Not trusting your intuition and always asking for a second opinion. It might not make sense now, so instead journal your readings and come back to it later. You could surprise yourself.
I like that. I like the idea of a tarot journal and writing down your own interpretations. I don't think it's a bad thing to ask for a second opinion, but I would encourage you to not do it for every single reading that you do, because that's not really how you grow confidence in your tarot readings. If you do a reading and after every reading you've interpreted it and you have your idea of what it means, and if after every reading that you do, you go for a second opinion, there's always someone who sees something different. There's always someone who would interpret these same cards differently, but that doesn't make your interpretation a bad one. And I don't think that is how you can grow your confidence.
Mistake number 5, comparing yourself to another reader.
I talked about this actually in my own video where I did 10 things to avoid as a tarot reader. And one of them is comparing yourself to other tarot readers and comparing your own practice to the practice of others. That is something that I do so bad. I want to say not as bad anymore, but sometimes I still do it. Let's see what she has to say for us, for those of us who do that.
Everyone's journey with tarot is different and your perspective is unique. Good luck.
I like that.
5
I like
mistakes.
that. I don't know. I like her energy. Yes, so let's take a look at another.
Here's a super quick tarot tip about the 5 of Cups. Most readers focus on the fact that 3 cups have spilled and there are 2 remaining cups available. However, the figure is mourning what he has lost. Now, I'm taking it a step further. I want you to notice the water ahead of him. Whenever a figure in tarot is facing the water, it means they're addressing their emotion.
I do like that. For me, because there are, there's an entire suit of cups that has to do with emotions. And I do see the 5 of Cups as a little bit of a self-pity card. I'm not gonna lie. Because, yeah. But I do understand what they're saying here, in that they're addressing their emotions and that they're like grieving. But I always think that it's important to not stay onto that grief for too long, because that is what the 5 of Cups represents for me. Someone who's focusing a little bit too much and a little too hard and a little bit too long on their sadness.
And my favorite part of this is the bridge in the background, indicating eventually
exactly.
there will be a way to cross over this emotion. to leave it behind, to progress and move
Yeah,
forward.
there's like the bridge and the whole city in the back where it shows, well, you can just take your upright cups and move on, move forward instead of taking pity on yourself.
Want more tarot tips? Obviously check
Tarot tip. If you're catching feelings for someone and you want to get an idea of how the relationship would go, find the Two of Cups in your deck. The cards around it will give you an idea of the potential of the possible connection. Tarot
Again,
tip.
one of those where, and I like the spreading of the cards. I especially like how they did that. Look at that again.
If you're catching
That
feelings
was
for
like
someone
super
and you
smooth. Yeah, I like that. I like that kind of tip where you look for a card and you look for the surrounding card. Again, not how I read tarot, not how I would read tarot, but it's like a nice idea.
Tarot tip. This one's relatively simple. As a matter of fact, its simplicity may surprise you. Instead of just approaching your deck to ask what's coming for you in the future, come to your deck and ask it what you already have. So for example, a lot of people will be like, what's coming for me in love? That's a very common question. Instead of that, why don't you ask what's already available for you in love?
I like that. It's like not focusing so much on the future and predictive readings, but more on the here and now. I really, really like that approach.
Just going through the doors that are already open. Tarot
I
tip.
like that. This braid, we've already watched like 3 of their videos. But I like what they have to say.
Tarot tip.
Okay, but we're now
Do not get it twisted. If
like
you are
what I
new
want to say. I don't want to watch only their videos. I want to watch other people's too.
to tarot, ignore these horrible, widely
I am intrigued. What does they? I don't know. No pronouns. I'll use they them. What they're saying misinformation is.
spread misinformation. Number 1. You need to buy a beginner deck. When people say this, they're typically referring to the traditional Rider-Waite, but there is no beginner deck. Get a deck that you feel called to.
Yeah, so I do think that there are beginner-friendly decks that indeed are based on the RWS, and I talk about that a lot because a couple of my favorite decks to recommend beginners is an RWS deck, like the Good Karma Tarot, the Lightseers Tarot, the Modern Witch Tarot. I think those are really good for like beginner tarot readers because I think they're beginner friendly. They're easy to look at. There's a lot of symbolism there and a lot that goes back to the RWS, on which there are a lot of resources to get to learn the tarot system. But I also think that it's super important that if those don't vibe with you, if you don't like the look of those, then I think the most important thing is to get a deck that intrigues you, that you think is pretty, that you think is beautiful, where you can actually get a lot out of it. And maybe that's not a traditionally beginner tarot deck, but it could be your beginner tarot deck.
And learn to practice off of it. I will, however, give you advice. Some decks do not label the initial cards, especially within the suits. So find a deck that has all the suits
Yeah, that
labeled.
can be really confusing if you're a beginner to tarot. And not only do you have to look at what all of these cards are because it's not like in a title at the bottom, but sometimes they even rename the court cards and you don't even know what the original like pages, knights, queens, kings mean. And then you have to translate the guardian and the whatever to the original names. That can be just confusing.
And has good imagery so that you can also utilize
Yes.
the pictures while you learn the meanings
Hard
of the
agree.
cards. Number 2, you do not need to be gifted a
Hard
tarot
agree.
deck. Go buy your own deck.
I
It's okay. And
have
number
purchased. That's not true. I have not purchased all of my decks because I have gotten a couple gifted by publishers and the deck creators. But yeah, that is. I think that is a misconception that is not that prevalent anymore. Like people, I think people know that you can buy your own tarot decks.
3, you do not need to be afraid of tarot. I think Hollywood really makes tarot seem like it's scary. I promise you it's really
That's
not.
so funny. I remember watching, oh my god, what is it called? Charmed. I watched Charmed and I know that one of the characters did a reading, a tarot reading, and they didn't, I don't even think that they had like regular labels, but it was like the Three of Swords, and it had like pain or something like that. And then they pulled a death card, which was gonna suggest actual death. And that annoyed me so much because a lot in Charmed felt like it was really resonating with a lot of people who identify as witches. Within their craft, you know, I mean, there was the fantasy part of like doing a spell, and as they were saying the words, things were happening, they were doing the spell. But I think a lot of things in the show Charmed resonated with a lot of witches, and then the tarot reading part was so blunt and stupid that really bothered me. I like what they had to say.
There is just one golden rule of the tarot, and it's wildly simple. It has nothing to do with what deck you use, how well you've mastered the meanings of the cards, whether you're using the Rider-Waite-Smith or Tarot de Marseille systems. The golden rule of the tarot that we must all abide by is garbage in, garbage out. What do I mean by that? I mean that it is your responsibility as a reader to ask detailed and specific questions of your cards so that in exchange, you get detailed and specific.
I get it. Okay, so at first I was like, okay, what are you talking about? I don't understand. But it's like, if you ask garbage questions, if you have like not clear intentions, then you're gonna get garbage answers, then you're gonna get unclear answers. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think some of these TikToks are a little bit too long, so I'm gonna skip them.
Here's how to tell what someone thinks about you using your tarot deck. Now, this example is going to be for, you know, a lover or someone that you were in a relationship with, and maybe things are a little bit funny now, or you're not speaking.
When it comes to this, I do want to preface that I think it's important to have your ethics like in a row, so to speak, where if you do a reading on someone else and someone else's thoughts about you, then I think it's really important to set the intention of only picking up what you need to know and only picking up what you're allowed to know. That's just some, maybe they're gonna say that pronouns, no pronouns, them, I don't know.
You can also do this with a friend or a colleague. I'll show you that in another video. But you're going to take your tarot deck, get yourself nice and centered, put the deck face up. You're going to go for the Lovers card. So shuffle, setting that intention to find out how they feel about you and what's going on. Once you get to the Lovers card, you're going to look to the two cards underneath. The first card represents their memories or their thoughts of your past, and the second card represents what they are currently thinking and feeling. So in this instance,
so it's like the same idea that we previously saw with the Sun card. Again, I would like to whoosh them out like that instead of just flipping through the cards. But yeah, that is an idea. Like, it's basically a tarot spread, but you're using it by flipping through your deck. I like it.
Let's talk tarot and how to get better at it. I myself am a beginner tarot reader, but I want to share the things that are helping me learn and grow. So first things first is get a deck that you resonate with. This is the Deviant Moon Tarot, and I don't know, I really resonate with this one.
I love it so much when people resonate with decks that I absolutely hate. Like, there's a deck for everyone, right? That is what is so awesome. But look at this. I know it's not for me. I kind of hate it. I was super close to picking this deck up just because a lot of people really liked it. But this is not a deck that I think I would read with ever.
After you pick a deck, I would go through all the cards, look at them, look at all the details.
Yeah, that is exactly what I do when I get a deck too. I look at it and I just flip through all of the images to look at every card to see what I can see. Usually I do this, or I used to do this on camera when I did like flip throughs, but I'm trying to pivot to not necessarily flip throughs, but like reviews where I do flip through the cards, but I have already like done the work with the deck.
Then to start learning the cards, I would pull one card every day and just focus on that card and what it means. So I personally hate the guidebooks that actually come with your deck. I would recommend going out and buying a tarot book. It's so much easier to learn this way. I recommend this book. This book is absolutely amazing.
I don't know that book. I personally have the Ultimate Guide to Tarot. I don't think guidebooks that come with the deck are necessarily bad. I think it totally depends on the deck and the author of the guidebook. But I do think that it is worth it to take a look at a good tarot book to read, to learn alongside the guidebook.
This is another book I would recommend. I don't think it's as good as the first one though. Something that I do to make my readings a little bit more accurate is I add some intuition oil to my hands, but you can also light a candle that you make for intuition, psychic awareness, stuff
I
like that.
It's like a little bit more of a magical way. And I like how they're approaching it by not saying that you have to do this, but that it's something that they like to do and that helps them in their practice. So I already like their approach a lot. Yeah, I like that.
So you bought tarot cards and you don't know where to start. No worries, I got you. Here's 5 steps on how to familiarize yourself with them. First, ask the universe to please help guide and support this reading. Next, warm up your intentions with a question about your life.
Yeah, I think that's good that you really have a good idea of your intention for the reading, because again, which we saw in the previous TikTok, where if your intention and your question is really clear for yourself, then you can get a much more accurate interpretation out of your reading.
Number 1 through 9 and then shuffle that many times. Keep focusing on your question as you cut the deck 3 times.
Okay, so this is like not how they're saying you have to read, but we again have them cutting the deck into 3 piles. And I talked about this in the previous video as well with the reacting to tarot TikToks. And what people said there is that for some people it makes sense to do it in 3 piles because it represents like the triple goddess, and someone else mentioned that it's just a nice way to make sure that your deck is like really well shuffled, I guess. I don't do this, but okay.
Then flip the tops of the cards over. Now examine
I
what
actually don't hate that. I don't know. It's like, especially if you were to do like a reading for someone else, I think it gives like a nice flair where it's not like, I don't know. Maybe that's like super superficial. I don't really care. I think that part of doing a reading for someone else, it's the way that you present it too. So I actually kind of like that.
card you pull. Tarot cards are kind of like reading a picture book. What in the picture stands out to you? Lastly, research.
Yeah, I like that. And then the last tip is to research the card meanings and to record them to record your readings in a notebook. I think that's really good advice. I also like that they're not saying like this is the definitive way to read tarot, which we had another one of in the first episode that I did of this. I don't know, is it just me or did we come across a lot of wonderful people in this episode where I react to TikToks? I think we saw a lot of really great people here. I don't know, I just wanted to do this video again because it did really well the last time. You guys seem to enjoy it. I really liked doing it. So maybe this is like a monthly video series that I'm gonna do similar to my new deck releases, which if you want to watch that, all the decks that came out this month or are gonna come out this month, I'll link it on the screen right now so you can watch it. Subscribe if you want to see more tarot chats and deck reviews. But for now, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you next time. Bye!